Greetings, Superkratos here, and I just want to offer up for your discussion my suggestions for how to balance out the current cards units in the game. And just I want to start out though with some general principles of how I think the game should be balanced. Magic Brick Wars. First of all, in my opinion, utility matters most. It's kind of hard to explain what I mean by utility, but I don't look as much at stats of a card. That is one factor in the card's utility. What I look at are things like, can I use this card um, to gain me some sort of advantage in the game? And sometimes that's the stats, and sometimes it's something else. Uh, so then, really, the question I ask is, what would make me consider playing with a card in my deck? So I actually look at the current cards right now, and if you look at my videos on building a meta deck currently, you'll see there's a very short list of cards that I consider worth putting in my deck. So then I look at all the rest of the cards and I say, okay, well, what would make me consider playing with those cards? So one thing you need to think is that strong cards don't always need a nerf. Stuff can be balanced by other things. You have to look at everything all at once and consider the game as an interconnected web of various cards and spells. Uh, so it's an interconnected web of cards and spells, not just this card here or that card there. Uh, and you also have to base changes on max levels. I'm not a huge fan of changing things based on what newer players are experiencing as they come up. I know a lot of new players think the cannon tower is overpowered. It really isn't. It's actually a relatively weak card. It's useful as you're climbing in the ranks, but then after you reach a certain point, its usefulness drops off almost completely. So um, I really look at the cards at their current max levels. And so I want to start things off by saying, what am I not suggesting we change, or what are we not going to make real changes to, significant changes to? And I'm going to just blow through this really quick. There's actually a lot of cards that I don't think need to be changed significantly. One is the Witch Doctor. I actually think it's a very well balanced card, in spite of the fact that it's in everybody's deck pretty much. And I think you're crazy if you don't put it in your deck. I actually think the stats and everything about the card um, are very balanced. So I would just leave it alone. The way that you can convince people not to put this card in their deck is by giving them another option of a ranged unit that they like better, which we'll get into that. The Fireball, I don't think this really needs changes. I think it's good. The Robot, I think this is fine. Yes, it's got this special ability of reinforcing bricks. I actually think sometimes that's a liability, not a help. Sometimes it's a help, and sometimes it's a liability. So it's kind of balanced. The Riding Hood, I think it's pretty well balanced as a card. The Zippy Brick, with the recent changes they made to it, I like it. I think it's a very usable card right now. Um, and same the Skeleton Brick has been balanced for a while, I think. The Boulder, especially with the changes, the recent reduction of its damage, I think it's a balanced card. The Healing Brick, it had some bugs a while back. They fixed that. It's doing pretty well at the moment. The Zappy Brick, I think, is pretty good. I may come back to this at some point and come up with some suggestions for it, but as for right now, I don't have any. The Cannon Tower, I think, is fine. I think it's useless at high levels, but at low levels, it's useful. So, it does what it does. The Smoke Bomb, I think I don't really have any balance changes for it. The question I have is, are there still bugs? I haven't noticed any. In the past, the Dragonfire was still visible through the smoke. Uh, if it does still have bugs, it would be great to see those fixed. The Miner, I don't really have any balance changes for it, except there is a possibility we could speed it up a little bit. Um, you know, it's pretty easy to counteract the miner by playing your magic bricks a couple rows back into your territory, and then he doesn't move quite fast enough to be unblockable. So I don't know if maybe he needs to be a little faster, if that might make him OP. From the grave, I don't really think there needs to be balance changes to this unless the poison brick is nerfed heavily. If the poison brick is nerfed heavily, then you do need to reduce the power from the grave. Um, if you need to nerf from the grave, my suggestion is to give it more skeletons, but make it weaker. Also, maybe change the shape, make it a 2x2 instead of that big. 3 lanes I think is maybe a little too much if you don't have poison brick to stop it. So uh, really, the only changes to from the grave are if the poison brick is nerfed. Now I'd like to go on to some brick related changes. And I actually think that these are significant. And this has to do with the fact that the poison brick right now, the poison brick is the most powerful card in the game. And I think I think that is undisputable, that it is the most powerful card in the game. The most powerful unit in the game is the mummy, but I think the poison brick is more powerful. And because the poison brick is the most powerful card in the game, that's why the mummy is so powerful, is because it's not affected by the poison. So the problem is if you nerf the poison brick too hard, it will make other things overpowered, particularly from the grave and skeleton brick. So if the poison brick is nerfed so hard that it doesn't kill off from the grave, then all of a sudden your entire meta becomes a swarm meta with from the grave and skeletons flying everywhere, and it just gets pretty annoying really fast. So how do we nerf the poison brick without making other things OP? My suggestion is you decrease the trap duration. So the current trap duration is 37.97 seconds. I think that's the problem. It The poison field just sits there too long. You can't really adjust the damage per second or the radius of it. You need it to be 3 lanes because from the grave is 3 lanes. So so that your big issue, the big issue is you have to reduce the length of time that it sits on the playing field. Maybe decrease it to 30 seconds or even 25 seconds. It's probably going to take some experimentation. My suggestion is not to do it too hard. Initially, drop it to 30, see what happens. We may need to drop it to 25 instead. And then I have suggested changes to the miner and Mr. Goo. So like the miner, if we did speed it up a little bit, then you'd see the miner maybe be able to diffuse trap a little more frequently. And if we make Mr. Goo more powerful and more people put Mr. Goo in their deck, then again, since he's immune to poison, it makes the poison brick less powerful. Again, those are changes that the idea is you make something else stronger rather than nerfing the poison brick. And then I think maybe we can make some new cards that reduce the impact of poison, and we'll get to that in the new cards section. Uh, the shield brick. I think a big suggestion for this is to make it not time out anymore. Now that it's reduced in radius down to a single brick, which I think was smart. I think it was too overpowered before. Uh, so now that it's a single brick, why does it time out? I don't understand why it times out. The Zippy Brick does not time out, so the shield brick doesn't need to time out. I think then people are forced to actually have to break it. Um, the ice brick. My suggestion for the ice brick and a bunch of the other bricks is for it not to harm your units. I don't see why it does that. This would be the number one reason probably that most people don't play with the ice brick, is because it has the chance of freezing your own units. So stop it. Just do away with it. Otherwise, the stats for this are crazy. The fact that the trap lasts for almost 19 seconds, the freeze lasts for almost 40 seconds. It's a pretty powerful freeze. The fire brick, again, it would be great if it does not harm your units. Um, that would be the main reason I do not play with the fire brick, because it does so much damage and it's so annoying that it hurts your units too. I think also the fire needs to extend further, and this is because a ranged unit can hit it. The trap, sits there for 18.99 seconds, but sometimes the ranged units, it takes so long for the ranged unit to get there that it does not burn to the trap. So uh, maybe it should extend to the whole lane. That might be too overpowered. Maybe if it went 2 squares forward, so the flame kind of shoots out. Um, it, it includes it. The fire is on the square of the brick, and then it goes 2 squares further forward towards your enemy's side. I think that might make the fire a little more usable. The bomb brick. Again, make it not harm your units or your bricks. Again, this is why I do not play with it, because it blows up my own troops. Why would I want that? Uh, it's currently balanced out by the shield brick, by ranged units, by the miner, by the mummy. You have a lot of ways to not get blown up by the bomb brick. That's another reason I don't use it. So, uh, if it doesn't harm my units, and then if you make it kill anything, maybe have it do 3,000 damage, depending on what we do with the 5 mana units. Whatever it takes, so the bomb brick can one-shot absolutely every other unit that's not immune, like the mummy. So then it might be really useful. So that would be my suggestion for the bomb brick. The confuse brick. Again, do not confuse your units, except in the confusing times event. That might be a hard change to make, but I would love it if it does not confuse my units, except in the confusing times event. That is really fun, I think, to have your own confused fields confuse your own units. So, I don't know if that's possible. Um, you may need to increase the trap duration to 5 seconds at least. Again, this is so that we make sure that ranged units um, that trip the trap, they actually end up walking into the confused field. The wizard, the witch doctor, these units, they have a tendency to break the brick and then not get confused as a result. So I think the trap duration has to increase a little bit, maybe up to 5 seconds. You might have to experiment with it to figure out how far you have to increase that. Maybe extend it across 3 lanes as well. That's another option to make the confused brick maybe a little more usable. Uh, is to extend it to the lane next on either side. Um, I think that might be an interesting idea to give it a try. The trap brick. I think right now the trap brick is maybe the second most powerful card in the game. This has to do with the fact that the other magic bricks are a lot of them are actually really useful. So I don't have any balance changes to the trap brick itself, but I'm suggesting changes to the spiked roller, as we will see, which I think will reduce the power of the trap brick a little bit. And the stonewall brick, whoops, C suggested changes to stonewall brick. I got that wrong. C suggested changes to the spiked roller. So the stonewall brick, again, it doesn't necessarily need to be nerfed itself, but we need to do something with the spiked roller. And what do I have suggested for the spike roller? Well, I think it needs to destroy stone or reinforced bricks again. Um, it used to do 2 ticks of damage, and so then it destroyed the stonewall bricks or the reinforced bricks. It does not do that anymore. It does a single tick of damage. So they need to change the spiked roller so that it does destroy the stonewall bricks. The stonewall bricks and the trap bricks, man, they can be pretty powerful defense. So even having it destroy the trap bricks as well. So if it hits a trap brick, it automatically destroys all of the bricks that the trap brick spawns. I think that would make the spiked roller useful. Keep it 3 mana, keep it doing the same amount of damage. If it could actually be guaranteed to destroy a swath of bricks, that would make it useful. The summon brick. I don't have any particular balance changes to it, but we do need to correct the bug. It currently summons an empty square if it does not summon a mana brick. So it randomly summons a mana brick, but if it doesn't, then instead of summoning nothing, it actually summons an empty square. So it will remove one of your bricks randomly. So I would love to see that bug corrected. I think that's a pretty frustrating bug. All right, well, I've got more suggestions, but I'm going to have to do them in another video.